Okay, since we're still in Ben Azmanim, towards the end of it, so I would now, we have to talk about Ma'achalis Asurais, which is Negeya now, and it's always Negeya every other time as well. But the Ikakala Ikrim is that to understand what kind of good and bad effect it has on us as we go through life. But first I may say over a story, an unbelievable story about the sister of the SHACH. As we all know, the SHACH, who wrote the Pirush on the Shulchan Aruch, which is accepted worldwide, and famous Maisa, which we're not going to say now, which Reb Shamshon Astropolia, that he refused to be Maisa Nefesh at that time in order to write his Pirush, because he said at the time that Klal Yisrael needs his Pirush. But in any event, he was under that Gezerah, that Kufa of Tach V'Tat, when Chemliki, who was the head of the Kazakhs, was out chasing and killing as many Yidden as he could find, and to kill them in every Misa Meshuna Shaykh to the human brain. In any event, the Shach's father was a big tzaddik. His name was Reb Meir. And it came the time that the Kazakhs were invading the city, so the Shach ran away to wherever he could find, and he had a sister who also ran away to any place she could find. But at that time they were separated. They were both fairly young. They were separated. The Shach, in the meantime, he heard that Vilna is the aim of Klal Yisrael. That was the main city in Europe at the time. So everybody was running to Vilna. So he decided he's going to go to Vilna also. It came a younger Bacha, came to Vilna. So first nobody looked at him. And then eventually people realized, they spoke to him, they saw he's a Baal Chen, and they saw that he's a big Talmud Chacham and he knows Torah from all over. So he was very old, so automatically he became very well respected. And everybody wanted to surround themselves and be close to the Shach because of his great gadlus and ga'inus. In any event, there was at that time lived in Vilna a big Gvir. And this Gvir had an open house for all types of aniyim, and anybody who came, he took them in. And some people, after a while, they wore out their welcome. But when this Gvir saw the Shach and he spoke to him and he realized that he's taka a major Talmud Chacham, so he decided that this Bacha, who was at that time a Bacha, was a Shach, he's going to stay in his house and he's going to give it a private room to learn in, and he could sit and learn Yom and V'layla. And that's how it was. The Shach got a room and a bed, and he got meals, and he just sat and learned Yom and V'layla. After a little while, this person saw that the Shach is such a chashuv a person, big Talmud Chacham, so he decided that he'd be a perfect shidduch for his daughter. So he had the shidduch read, and obviously shidduch went through, and the Shach became a Edom of this big Gvir, and he had a fantastic setup. He would never have to work. He was able to sit and learn a whole day. As part of it, the Balabas wanted to do an extra favor for the Shach, that he should never be disturbed with mundane things, like preparing food and deciding what to eat, or all these things that go along with what's by us regular life. Decided that this person, the Shach, has to have somebody sitting outside his door at all times, especially at night, when he wanted to, he'd get hungry in the middle of the night and he'd have to go get some food. So he had a girl sitting outside his door, and anytime he needed anything, she was there, ready, available. He didn't have to go look for someone to call to find a person to prepare his food or whatever else he needed. So meantime, he sat in his room the whole time, and if he needed anything, he'd open the door a crack and tell the girl that was sitting there, please get me this thing that I need. And he had a very good setup. He was very happy with it. In the meantime, the Shach's sister, who had ran away, so she was not as fortunate. She had to go from city to city, banging on doors, begging for food, begging for some money, begging for anything that she could get, basically. And she was more or less miserable, but she was coming from such a family where her father was the head of the city where he lived. He was the Rav. And she had a brother who was a big Ilui, was the SHACH. And she was a very refined person, but she was not as fortunate, and she had to go mamish from city to city, banging on doors, trying to collect money. In the end, she came to Vilna. And so she was met. The way it worked in that house where the Shach was staying, where his shver was, is that the man, the father, would take care of all the men guests that would come, and the lady, the wife, would take care of all the lady guests that would come. When this mother-in-law saw the Shach's sister, he saw that she was from a very refined stock, and he told her, she told her that she's going to from now on stay in their house, and she won't have to go running around, to find a meal every single day. So they decided, since she's going to stay there, so they're going to give her the job, because they were not able to find anybody that was well qualified to serve the Shach when he was learned. They had a few people come and go. But this girl, since she was such fine midas and everything else, so they decided that she would be the one who's going to sit in front of the Shach's room, and ever he needs anything, so she would get it for him. So she was sitting by the door, and she was listening to the Shach learn loudly, and it reminded her very much of her own father sitting and learning. And then she started thinking back to all the hard times she's having now, and all the good life that she gave up of hearing her father sitting and learning, that this person sitting and learning here sounded very similar to her father. And she would burst out crying every night, reminding herself of what her father used to give her and tell her, and the great life that she had before the Kazakhs came and ruined everything. While the Shach was learning, all of a sudden he starts hearing that the girl sitting outside his room is crying b'chiyas gedailas. So he went to speak to her to see what's going on. So she told him about the great life, and her father was Reb Meir, and he asked her who her mother was, and she said who her mother was. And they had this conversation. The Shach realized that this person here is his sister, but he didn't want to say who he was yet. She didn't recognize him. So he decided he's going to leave it that way for now to see what will be. Meantime, he told his mother-in-law that this girl is a very special girl, and he should give her the best room in the house, and give her the best foods, and everything else. And she can, in the meantime, she could still stay by his door, but after a little while, he said he's not going to want her to be by his door any longer, that she should just do what she needs to do around the house, but since she's so chashuv, he didn't want anything, of course, bad to happen to her, because it was his sister, but he didn't want to tell her at the time. So that's the way life went on. The Shach was sitting and learning in his room, the sister was living in the house, and everybody was happy, but she had no idea that he was still alive or anything like that. However, the Shach himself knew. In any event, one day his mother-in-law, the Shach's mother-in-law, passed away. So of course everybody was sad. The husband, who was considered from the big Gevirim in the town, and he was a big Bach Chesed and Talmud Chacham and everything else, of course all the Shatchanim were banging down his door to read him all kinds of people. So since he appreciated and knew the Shach, so he went to the Shach and said, what should I do? So of course the Shach told him that the halacha is that the first thing is you have to wait till Shalish Regalim will pass, and when 3 Yomim Tovim pass, then you could listen to a shidduch, but until then you can't listen to anything. So he told all the Shatchanim that. Then when it came time for him for the shver to get married, so the Shach told him, listen, there's somebody living in your house who I can vouch that she's very, very big tzanua and isha tzadekes and everything else, and if you'll marry her, you'll never have charata. So his shver, who respected the Shach very much, decided that it was a wonderful idea. And The Shach said he'll walk her down the aisle, unterfira, as they say, and that's what he did. So they got married, and he walked her down the aisle. After the chasna, Shach went over to the shver, and the kala, who's his sister, and he told them both that you should know, tells the shver that you should know that you married my sister. That's why she is who she is. She's so chashuv and fine and everything else. And Hashem's going to bench you with a son that's going to light up the whole world with Torah. And then they had a son. They named the son Meir, who was his father's name, and obviously the Kala's father's name. And he grew up to be one of the Perushim of the Shulchan Aruch called the Meir Panim. And he was also one of the great lights shining on Klal Yisrael. So the Maisa of the Shach, of Daily Yisrael, so of course has to do with everything, the way every Yid runs his life. And of course every Yid runs his life through what he eats and how he acts and what the kavanas that he does, the kavanas that he has while he's doing his things that he has. I want to speak now a little bit, without going all too much into the kavanas, because they get a little bit complicated, of achila and shtiya. And this week's parasha talks, at the end of the parasha, talks about machalas asuris, a behema tameya and a behema tahira. So I wanted to get to the, pun intended, to the meat of the Indian. So we know that the Torah tells us that there are many different types of animals in the world. So there's birds, fish, shkatzim, ramasim, chayas, behemoths and chayas. Different categories, but all under the same. Now we know when the Torah started off by the beginning of the Bria, so Hashem created the world through what's called datzcham, which is doimim tzemeach chay medaber, which is the daimim is the earth, tzemeach is the plants that grow, the chay is the animals, and medaber is the people. When Hashem created the world, He created every chelik of the world with something that needs to be thrown out, what we'll call psilas, extras, not needed for the main purpose. But the extras are pshat, that we have to do what's called a birur, or like I say on Shabbos, boirer, we have to separate the good from the bad. One of the reasons why it's asur on Shabbos, because Shabbos is me'ein olam haba, and Shabbos has to be min hamuchan, from prepared. Therefore, we cannot separate the good from the bad on Shabbos, because it cannot be separated on Shabbos. It has to be, so to speak, prepared from beforehand. Now, if you take all the four stages we mentioned before, daimim, tzemeach, chay, medaber, so in the soil, some soil is good, some soil is, you have Idius, Ziburius, Beninus. You have three different types of land. Some grow better, some grow worse. In every piece of land, there's also rocks, and sometimes it's sandy and it's not moist to earth. There's always, in every type of earth, which is the lowest form, there's always going to be psilas. You can't use everything that's there. You have to always separate the good from the bad. That is the way the Rebbeinu Shalom created the Bria in general. If you go to the next level, which is tzemeach, which is plants. So if you're going to plant trees, grows weeds. And let's say you planted an apple tree, so there's apples on the tree, but till you get to the apple, you have roots, which are not edible. You have the tree itself, which is not edible. You have the branches, you have the leaves, you have the blossoms of the flowers that fall off. There's a lot of psilas there, till you get to the actual apple. And then in the apple itself, you also have a lot of psilas. We don't keep everything that we eat. Even we eat the peel, we don't eat the pits, we don't eat the things surrounding the pits. There's always a psilas there, so we're always being mevarer. Everything we take into our bodies gets purified. In other words, that the psilas we spit out comes out of us, and the stuff that gives us energy, that stays in us. We are also a vehicle of boirer. And that's in a tzemeach. In a chay, which needs more of a tikkun. In other words, everything that's coming we have to be misakin it. So in an animal, how are we misakin? in it Meach. We don't need so much tikkun. So you can basically, in Chutz La'aretz, you could pick the apple off the tree and eat it in Eretz Yisrael. So there's Kedushas Haaretz, so you have other mitzvahs that are involved with it. But over here, all you have to do is pick it off the tree and eat it. Of course, there is a psalus involved, but you don't need so much of a tikkun. But by a behema and a chaya, we need much more of a tikkun, because we have to shech the animal. And then we have to salt it. And then we have to take off the parts that we're not allowed to eat, like a gir hanoshe, or whatever it is. And so there is a boirer, we are separating the good from the bad, and then when we ingest it, then you have again the same process that the psalus we kick out, and the stuff that's good energy for us, we keep. The Torah told us that there is a thing of behema tahira and behema tameya. There are certain parts in every thing that we eat that we don't have the ability to fix it, to be misakin it, to be butter it, but it has to come to us in a level of prefixed. In other words, it was fixed before we even got to eat it. And any animal that cannot have that tikkun before we eat it, we can't take into us. So Rabbi Shalom, I'm just talking right now about a behema. We'll get to the other soon. A behema has to have two things. It has to be chewing its cud, which is Male Gera, and it also has to be Mefreses Parsa. Why these two things? So everybody will tell you this Gzeres HaKosov, which obviously it is. But now what's the tam of the Gzeres HaKosov? So some things are Mefresh and Arizal, some things we have to, so to speak, fit in. As you know, we know ourselves that whenever we come to the end of a body, fingers represent the end, toes represent the end. That's where the main achizas chitzonim is at the end of the body. Therefore, if the behema has a hoof which is not split, so there's no place for those chitzonim that are in the person to leave, in the behema to leave, it gets stuck because there's no exit. That's why by a person, you have exits, you have 5 toes in order for those chitzonim to be able to leave. And the same thing, you have 5 fingers on each hand, yamin and smile, in order for those chitzonim have the ability to leave. Which is because if it doesn't have the ability to leave, we don't have the ability so much to expel it, it will get stuck. So a behema as well, we don't eat from a behema that doesn't have the ability to expel the chitzonim. And the Rebbe Shalom did it in this way because he does not, under any circumstance, want us to be in a position that we won't be able for us to get rid of our own chitzonim. So if we ingest a behema that cannot get rid of its tumah, and it goes into us, we won't be able to get rid of that tumah as well. Therefore, all these restrictions that the Torah gave us, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us, he did not give it because he wants to make life difficult for us, chas v'shalom. Everything he did for us is only, and I emphasize it again and again, only for our own good, that we cannot fix it. Male Gera, so Arizal says a tam because it's keneged, 4 times Shem Ban, which is Geira, which is 208. But without going into the detail, just to say more of the Svara Shabai, when an animal is Male Gera, he has to chew its cud. Means chewing its cud, that the food goes down to the stomach, and then it goes from one stomach to the next. It regurgitates, it comes back up, and it goes back down. Usually, typically, an animal, it happens 7 times. Why 7 times? Because just like we know in our world, in order to be misakin things, we have to go through 7 stages, like you have 7 days of the week, and you have the 7 spheros tachtonos. So too, when the animal takes his food, and he goes through 7 stages till it goes into him, finally, that 7 stages is basically allowing it to become purified inside the stomach of the animal itself. In other words, each time it regurgitates, it's getting a new purification. That's pshat male geira. Male geira is miloshin me'ula, bringing it up, madregas. That's male. That's why it's called a male geira. So in order for us to eat a behema, we have to have those two characteristics in it. One is the male geira, that we should be ma'ila'id, because we went through the 7 stages. And also don't forget, as it goes through each stage, there's more spit from the animal going into that, which is considered meimei hachesed. And that is being ma'ila'id to a madrega, that we're able to digest it in a kedusha deka eifin. And the mafresa's parsa is that if it's just one lump, one round hoof, without any split in it, it doesn't have a place for that chitzayim to come out. And that is not a tikkun that we can do. Tikkun that we can do is to shech the animal, is to salt the animal. Those are tikkunim that the Rebbeinu Shalom told us that we can do on our own, and he allowed us to do it. And just one more thing I'm going to add is that the reason why a chaya is different than a behema. A chaya, if you look at the physical part of a behema, is typically much heavier. A cow weighs 1,500 to 2,000 pounds. And sheep and goats are lighter, but they don't run so fast. A chaya, like a deer, can run very, very fast. It can jump very high. What's the pshat? Because a behema, the word behema is gematria 52. And the word behema is amidas hadin. That shame of shame ben, which is 52, is considered amidas hadin. Therefore, the behema is heavy and he has a hard time moving. They can run fast, but not as fast as a deer. A deer, which is a chaya is gematria 23. And if you take, without going into the detail, the milui of the shame ban, it comes out to 23 letters. So since that's considered like an ahaya madrega, so therefore the animal, the chaya, can jump higher. That's a word from the Arizal. There's also fish to talk about. There's also birds to talk about. There's many other things to talk about. But I'm going to, for right now, stop it here. Maybe we'll continue at a different time. But just to get in a little bit of the tam hadavar, which most people don't understand why maligera and why mafresa's parsa. And main thing to walk away from is that anything that the Kadosh Baruch Hu told us, mitzvahs, averis, everything that he told us to do is only for our own benefit, whether we realize it or not. There's nothing that he put in the Bria that is for his benefit. Everything that's here is for our benefit. We just have to open our eyes and see it.